Hi, guys, and welcome to Keep Hope Alive podcast. We have a great show. Wait a minute. All the shows are great. So, our guest speaker for today is Ross Alexander. He is a sports performance coach, and I get to interview him. I'm so excited. He has a lot to share with us. Hi, how are
Hey, how
you
you doing?
doing?
I'm good.
I'm doing great. Yes. So, hey, before we get started, I have one really important question for you.
What's up?
Are you ready for it?
Sure.
All right. How many weddings have you been to in the last 10 years?
Ooh, not that many. I'd say five or six, if
Okay,
that.
five or six. That's a
Yeah.
good number. So you're going into the ceremony, you're walking through the door. Usually people have to sign this thing. What is that thing?
Oh, it's like a little book. Like I forgot, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a guest book, right?
Yay! Yes. Okay. So Keep Hope Alive has our main sponsor, which is lifeonrecord.com. And what they do is instead of that guest book, they have a vintage rotary phone that your guest can come and pick up the phone and leave a message. Congratulations on your wedding. Or you have one of your guy friends come and go, dude, it's about time. Like they can say whatever, but it's all collected, which is nice. Right next to that phone is a QR scan code that your guests can take out their mobile phones, scan it, click on the little yellow button, and it will, you can save that and leave a message either right then and there on your cell phone or after the ceremony. But once all these messages get collected, they burn it on a 10-inch vinyl record, or they have this wonderful, cute little boombox that they can program all those messages in. So, like you're celebrating your year, you can go back, have that piece of cake, and then also, whatever. But you know what? I'm going to tell you something. With Life on Record, it doesn't always have to be a wedding, it could be a corporate event, it could be a sports event, it could be, we talked about yesterday funerals, and I actually think that's a great idea too. But I had to use it for a sports injury. My son plays football, and one of the kids broke his leg. So I put out the phone number, which is 833-780-HOPE. So you can also ask Ross any questions on that number. But so they get to call it and leave that message. And then the kiddo got to hear it and was like, wow, they care. This is so meaningful. So what they do is give you this phone number for 1 year, and the rates are at $99. That's it. So it's affordable, it's great, and the phones are adorable, but check them out at www.lifeonrecord.com. So Ross, the biggest thing as I get to review your life at a glance, and then I get to ask you these fun little questions to get to know you. But in so many words, who is Ross?
I'm a performance training coach, and I'm also just starting to get into the public speaking realm as well. So I'm a father of two, and I'm a husband, and I'm just a small town guy from a Central Texas town, and I just try to do the best I can for people, and also just try to live the best I can and do right by people.
That's good. That's good. So, father, and you have a wife, and that's amazing. Hold on to that forever, okay? Because I'm a certified wedding planner. I'm going to say hold on to that forever.
Awesome.
Um, and then I guess when did you realize, like, were you playing sports back in the day, and maybe that's what made you want to become a performance coach?
I've always trained. I've been somewhat in the personal training realm since like 2003. I kind of fell into it. I was, uh, I used to work at a gym over in San Marcos I was a student at Texas State University in San Marcos. and I worked for this gym that's been around since the 70s. And the owner was actually contracted with the university, and he would have students come in, and their class or elective course was to take classes on how to lift weights properly, how to do proper form. And because I was a university power lifter and then also a power lifter for his team, I became one of his professor's assistants. So he would split the class up, and I would take a group, and then for 3 or 4 years, I would kind of show them through each semester a routine and the exercise and how to go from there. And then when I moved out there to North Texas, around the Wichita Falls area, I had transferred universities to Midwestern State University, and I was working at Gold's Gym over there, and I got certified for my first certification for a personal trainer, and started kind of getting into that in personal training. I eventually got into CrossFit, and just trained different types of individuals that way. And I've always kind of just kept on learning. And then when I came back here into the Central Texas area in 2013, I started a boot camp, and then did that from 13 until about 18. In 2018, I kind of closed shop, and I was kind of getting into another industry I wanted to focus on. And
Mhm.
then 2000 and November 2020, I rebranded and kind of started over. Now, that being said, I kind of took it as like, hey, I'm gonna just do some boot camps maybe here, some personal training. And it was all through the grace of God that I started receiving phone calls from parents and from athletes themselves wanting me to train them and train their kids. And that's how it really took off. So since 2000 and like I said, summer 2021, is when I've really gotten into the performance and that way. Like I said, I've trained individuals, and I was just out of college around 2000, and even when I was in college, still I was training collegiate cheerleaders to make or high school cheerleaders to make the collegiate team. I was training some power lifters there because I was also a collegiate cheerleader. So I would train girls on how to properly stunt, and we'll work on some things. So I think I sent a girl to Auburn. I had a girl try for Texas Tech, for different universities that way. And so that one kind of got there, but it was just kind of part of what I did, right? As far as, okay, I'm doing this sport, I'm pretty good at it. I know how to coach it. Let me go ahead and just see if I can make some money off it. And I always became successful that way. But when I got here, that's what I've been doing. And so it went from like 8 kids my first summer. And I mean, I have, now I have, year round kids I work with. I think I had close to 50 kids I worked with throughout the summer, either in my off-season camp or individually. And so, yeah, so, then of course I have kids that'll come back through the summer. I have a young man that I coached my first summer, and he'll come in during the summer breaks from Wisconsin. He plays, I think, in a Incarnate Word in Wisconsin, and he'll come in and he'll get some workouts in throughout the summertime or sometimes during the holidays.
That is really cool. And you know what? I'm learning all this. My son is 11, and I'm just gonna backtrack. When he was younger, like young, he was doing circles. Like, I love this story. Like, he could do 100 circles, not get dizzy. And I'm like, I went to his pediatrician. I was like, what is going on? Like, oh, we need to get him tested. Of course, they were thinking it was sensory, Asperger's, autism. And I was like, okay. So for 1 year, we went through all this training. They would come to the house, and then they had me in the boardroom in Allen, and I will never forget. So, and there was like maybe 10 or 15, executives there. And they were like, well, we tested this and this and this, and he doesn't have it. And I'm like, as a mom, I'm like, what does he have? Like, so scared. But they go, you have a genius on your hands. And I go, what? Like, that doesn't sound smart on my end, but like, a what? But what he picks up on is audio learning, visual learning really fast, memorizes it. He actually, he memorizes old. football games, play routes, everything.
Really?
And
Wow.
he's in football, and it was flag first. They kind of had him as a quarterback. He didn't like that. And then we started other teams, and we did it every season. And he's on safety, corner, wide receiver. He's a captain now. I'm just like,
Wow.
gosh. And he's like, Liam, you can remember this. Your brain is like on fire. So he's helping other kids learn what their plays are too, while he's helping with the coach be on
That's
one-on-one, which
awesome.
I'm proud of him.
That is awesome.
So,
Yeah.
but the scariest thing, you do powerlifting. He's already come to me age 11. Mom, sign me up for a gym. I got to start lifting. I go, they're not going to let you. You're too young. Like,
Yeah.
what age can you start lifting?
So I don't, so I actually start at 11, but I don't
Oh,
start,
you do?
yeah, I don't start them at the weights though. They don't need to be
Okay.
they don't need to be on the weights. So when I have, so I had so many kids this summer that separated my classes into three groups. I have a like a pre-athletics early middle school group, which is what he would fit into, and I have a women's group and a men's group.
Hmm.
And so what we do is I just focus strictly on body weight. They have to be able to lift their body first. They have to be able to control their body. Now, what I do as far as to simulate a barbell is I do have like 5 foot long, quarter in diameter PVC pipes. So
Okay.
those weigh a few ounces. And so after they kind of get their body weight down, and they don't have to do a push up yet, right? But I'm
Hmm.
showing them through the PVC pipe the form of what a bar is going to be like. Because what I try to do with them is you have a class now in middle school through sixth grade, right? Because a lot of sixth graders go to quote unquote middle school now. It's not really junior high anymore, but they go into pre-athletics. Now, every pre-athletic program is different, right? So like some of them might do something similar to me and work these 10 and 11 year olds, maybe early
Hmm.
12-year olds on body weight exercises. But then you have a lot that just straight go take the kids to the weights. I personally don't agree with that. I think you need to develop their technique and their body strength first. Also, at that age, between 11 to even 15, kids are maturing at a different rate, right?
Yeah.
So so a lot of times what you have there is you have differences in core and trunk strength. And so if a kid that I'm not going to expect a kid to put a 45-pound barbell with any other plates on each side making the 45 pounds heavier, right, to 55 or 65 pounds or to 100 and some pounds, if they can't even drop their hips to the proper position of a squat and sit correctly, or if a kid can't do really a push-up, I'm not going to really have them push up weight on a barbell, right? Like
Yeah.
so and then from there, it's really a touch and go on who you're going to move up to start doing weights depending on how far along they are, right? so
Yeah.
so my goal is when I work with my kids is to give them enough to where when they go into pre-athletics, right? And I have a relationship with the school district here in my community. But what I do is try to give them the tools for themselves to say, hey, when I go there, I know what it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to go versus how it's not. And at least they could protect themselves somehow that way.
Yeah, definitely. That's very smart.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's, a good thing that you have that relationship with the schools. I mean, they can bring you out and say, hey, what are we doing? What can we make better? Now, the one thing I don't understand why Allen, Texas does this, but my son's school, like, it goes 1 through 6th grade. And I was just like, I'm used to 1 to 5th grade and then having middle school, sixth, seventh, eighth, and then you go to freshman, 9, 10, and then senior high. But like, I was like, are they going to do sports like in 6th grade at that school? I know my son has signed up for like track running and stuff and getting built that way, but I don't he's like, he'll tell me he gets a recess still. I find that funny at sixth grade. But he's like, we're playing football outside. I made a touchdown, and he goes, my teacher got mad at me. Like, I'm making all the touchdowns. I go, well, okay, don't stop. I didn't know what to tell him. Like, don't stop. You do you. You put it's your accomplishment, you know. If you strive to go out and do it, but share, I see that side of it too. And so I think I handled that the right way.
Yeah,
But
every school district is different. Like when I went to school, it's a little different than when you went. Like it was every 2 years we transferred schools out, right? So we had kindergarten, and then
yep.
first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and that fifth, sixth school was what they would consider an intermediate school, which is what I think what we're trying to get back to over here. And then which they would still have recess, but then you're focusing more on the predominant sports, like the volleyballs and the basketballs and so forth, like for coordination. And even at that age as a kid, even though you have recess, it is what your son is doing. They're trying to pull what they find fun are those organized sports. And then you get to seventh and eighth grade, and those are more for adolescents. I think I even the intermediate school concept I really like because in my opinion, I think fifth grade is too mature for elementary, right? And
Hmm.
so I like separating fifth and sixth graders because they're in between those two. That they're pre-adolescents, but they're not adolescents yet to be working around the seventh and eighth graders. And then when you get into seventh grade, well, then that's where you start now doing competitive sports, and
Yeah.
organized sports throughout the school district. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't sound like they're doing a pre-athletics over there in Allen, which is completely still fine. Just as long as I feel that the junior high coaching staff is educated enough to then lift those kids up. And like I said, every program is different how they work it. I know here we have something, like I just told you about the pre-athletics program with the middle school, and it's just about putting yourself in a position to protect yourself when you're young, right, and
Oh yeah.
knowing how to properly work your body. I'll give you an example. I have a kid, and I still I work with him once a week. Him and his sister. His sister's in high school though, but I got him, and he was going in from fifth into sixth grade, and so of course, like definitely, like I told his mom and dad, it was like a baby giraffe, right? Like really kind of
Yeah.
uncoordinated, and it's amazing how far along he's come since May. Like he's not awkward anymore. He's so much stronger. There's a few
Good.
things we're still working on, but what we do now is we just do different modifications. Now I will say he's come a long way on his lower body strength. Even though he is 11, I still put some weight on him, not by my choice. If it was up to me, I would just completely not have weight on him at all. But he is
Hmm.
coming to me, and I know that they're putting weight on him at the junior high. So I need to let him to know this is what the weight should feel like on you. This is the depth in your squat that you need to be at, to where it's not too low, but it's not high. But you want to be able to have a sustainable and efficient squat technique, and this is how your legs and your knees and the way you're sitting should feel. But now granted, I also make them use belts. You have a lot of programs that won't let them use belts or whatnot, and my thing is I get where your concept is, the fact you want to build their core strength, but I'm not going to jeopardize somebody's well-being or health by putting weight on their back, saying we got to work your core strength, especially like I said, at that age you have different
Yeah.
levels of development, right? So let's go ahead and do core workouts, and let's go to a certain level, and then you're going to eyeball how strong is their core until they start to fold. When they start to kind of, hey, you're seeing this a little struggling, even with, and you'll notice it in the hips first. That they're struggling. That's when you put the belt on, and that sense of security actually helps them in their technique. And so, yeah, so there's a lot of things at that age. You can't, it's not black and white, at that level. But because I had him starting in May, I had him for 3 full months before he started over there, like I feel comfortable with him doing weights. I just like to, I'm glad that his parents have him come to me once a week throughout the year so that we could practice the fact that, is putting weights on him, and say, hey, he's coming here. He's knowing he's doing it correctly. He's knowing about how much he should be putting on himself, and the
Yeah.
fact that he feels safe doing it.
That's good. That's really good. So, and then also like I was reading you actually played semi-pro, semi-professional football also.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that journey?
Yeah. So, I think I graduated college already. I hadn't graduated college yet. I'm trying to think. I think I graduated college, and I was working out at the gym. And of course, I knew most of the coaches that coached, and one or two players that would come in there at Gold's Gym, and that for this semi-professional football team at the time they're called the Wichita Falls Vipers. And so they had all been part of a previous team that were there called the Wichita Falls or Oilers, I think, or something like that, after that manner. Anyways, or Drillers, I apologize, Drillers. And so,
Hmm.
anyways, they were a super good team, right? Like those guys went and played everywhere. And that whole area, as far as semi-professional goes, they have a ton of good athletes. So I was sitting there and I was bench pressing, and they were like, "Hey, how many times can you do what you're doing?" I think I had like 315 pounds. Like, about 25 or 26 reps. And like, well, how many times can you do 225? I was like, I don't know, put 20 more reps on top of that, almost 50 reps I could do. They said, well, you've played football. I was like, yeah, I played in Central Texas. And I was recruited by Texas State. I just chose at the time not to, right? Which, of course, I
Yeah.
regret. I really wish I would have gone to play college ball, but I chose at the time not to. So they say, hey, why don't you come try out? So I was like, let me try it. I'm 27. Let me go try it out. And so I went and tried out, made the team. Was in the starting rotation because we had a lot of depth at defensive line, and in fact, the defensive scheme that they used over there in Wichita Falls was the same scheme I used in high school, and I'd worked on it for 3 years, and we were really good. I think my junior and senior year, I think we had like the number 9 top defense in the state for our division,
Oh,
so we were
nice.
really good at that. And so they moved me from defensive tackle to defensive end, and I finished off the year with, I think, the most tackles for a loss. And back then, the way they construed, you had to be a certain type of semi-pro team to be considered BCS eligible. So I don't know if you remember back in the day, before the playoff system in college, they had what you call a BCS standing, which determined the rank of the collegiate football teams. Well, they had the same thing for semi-professional football teams as well, but you had to be certain, like in a certain league, and you had to have certain talent and play certain talent. We couldn't just go play like the bush league teams. So we
Yeah.
had a bunch of former athletes on our team. We had former D1 football players, Canadian football players. Our quarterback, I think that particular year, the indoor arena league was on strike. So we grabbed one
Hmm.
of their quarterbacks. The dude was insane, right? And his brother was our tight end. And so these guys are the type of guys that sometimes go play professional football, like Kurt Warner. So our
Yeah.
quarterback was in the same league, Hall of Famer Kurt Warner was in. Well, once again, they were on strike that year, and so he came to play for us. So then, because of the competition you're playing, you're like, okay, well, these guys have these certain players, they're playing these guys with these players. And so you start getting to what you call a BCS system in the semi-pro leagues, to the point to where in those games you have college scouts come and look at you and so forth. Now, with that being said, I was done with college. I wasn't looking to go play collegiately anywhere. I was just having a good time. But we wound up winning a national championship, and I have a
Yay.
ring over here, and it was real fun. But it made me realize I could have definitely, done it in the collegiate realm as well. I had chosen to do so, because it was, like I said, it came pretty easy, and I really enjoyed it. But I remember the first few weeks of practice, like I hadn't done anything like 8 or 9 years like that, and man, I was in some pain, right? Like hitting people, and so I was taking
Oh,
Epsom
yeah.
salt baths, and
And you're talking about it older, and I was football mom for my
mhm,
son's team, but hearing all the boys and complaining, I'm just hungry. I don't want to be here. I'm tired. It's like, get out on
yeah.
that field and work it out. I was trying to be their cheerleader, little motivator. Get out there. So, it was the different things, but when you're in that football learning program, I
Hmm.
think with the coaches, I don't know if your coaches did this, but they've taught well, my son's football coach teaches, and they have to go to classes for how to, when you make money, if you decide to go this route in life, learning what to do in investment. then how to be a gentleman, how to tie a tie, how to eat correctly. And it was just those things. I was like, boy, they're really structuring the boys, not
Yeah,
only in a football sense, but learning to grow and
how to
be
be
men.
men. Yeah,
Mhm,
like it's back in our day. I mean, we didn't go through those type of classes, but we had coaches that would say, before our pictures, bring your tie, right? Don't bring it, and they would teach us how to tie a tie and how to be good sportsmen and how to just be good individuals. And unfortunately, you have high school football even has become such a business, and coaches move around so much now versus before. Like a lot of times back when back in the '90s and even early 2000s, before that if you had a head coach and he retired or left, especially if he was older and decided to leave, and you typically have had your coaching staff there for years already, and so one of them would take over. It's not so much anymore. A lot of school districts, will hire from outside. They bring their own coaching staff in. It's not as like personal. It's not as traditional as it used to be. It's become such a business so the fact that and there's a lot of school districts that actually do what you're talking about
mhm.
in one way or one capacity or the other for your son. It sounds like they're doing a great job over there for for the boys.
Well, it's
You,
not a school, so it's
oh, it's
like
not the
the,
school. Okay.
outside, um, Denton, like Denton 380 is where we go. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
more of the coach deciding that
No,
though, which was
that is
amazing.
that is awesome. And especially, on the financial end, because you have so many kids that are going to college now, especially the NIL, right? With the kids getting
Uh-huh.
paid in college. I have a friend here, he owns he played collegiate football for Texas State, and he's a financial advisor now. And his thing is he goes and talks to these young men about
Yep.
investing what they're getting paid, right? And saying, don't
Yep.
blow it. Let's, start this now. And that stuff I wish I would have had at a young age.
I
Most of us
know. Yeah.
it's learning how to live and before that, let's say kids would get stuff, but that was illegal back then. You had to keep that stuff on the DL. And if people say they didn't do it, they're lying because everybody did it, right? Like everybody's always done it,
Mhm.
right? And so for the fact that it's kind of out there now to where you're not breaking rules because but you're having it to where, hey, let's teach these kids how to invest. But what your son's program is doing is great because teach them how to be good men. And you have to be able to be a good person to do anything in life to really get
Yeah.
ahead. Because if you get a reputation to where you're not trustworthy or you're not that good of a person, that's only going to take you so far. And then a lot of times you got to look at yourself in the mirror and be able to have that conversation with yourself if you really feel like you're that good of a person or not. I mean, unless you're a sociopath or a narcissist, you're going to care about that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm proud of my son's steps that he surprised me. He was like, he came up to me the other day, Mom, I need to go and serve. Take me to church. But he's memorized all some passages. And I'm like, okay, it was his decision. We went back to the church that we used to go to, and he decided to get baptized and stuff. But we watched a movie. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was a Christian movie, but it was about a football team and how to work together and not be against each other. But I remember it was even before going back to church. Liam, my son, says something because one of the kids was out of place. He's like, we work together and we have faith and we pull this through. And I was like, he said that? Like, oh my gosh, she didn't get beat up. And that's the real world today. You don't know how people are going to take it, but he put faith into football. And I love that part. So,
No, that's really good. And I will say even like your son, like what you said, you were kind of scared he would get physically harmed. Most people, it's not like I said, we grew up right where physicality on bullying really
yeah.
happened. We don't see that a lot anymore. Unfortunately, it's kind of different now, right? Like a lot of times bullying happens on the
Oh, yeah.
social media aspect, and to me, that's like a never ending, right?
Hmm.
But I feel it's wild. I was talking to a bunch of parents, and I even talked to friends of mine as far as kids. I remember when I was because I have kids are seniors and juniors, and I'm not sure if it's like the gaming world or best of, but there's so many kids nowadays, they have like a sense of naiveness and a sense of innocence that I felt I didn't have at that age. And I love it about them, right? They don't care what people think if they're dancing around like little fools, right? They don't care about how they look. When I was, in high school, man, I wanted to look cool all the time. I wanted to try
Yep.
not to say a lot, right? Like I always wanted to be like Mr. Suave. And a lot of us felt that way. We want to be grown up. And you have so many of these kids nowadays that don't feel that way. And there's a sense of maturity about it. I even see it on the level of my varsity athletes, and they work out with some of the freshmen. When I was in school, if you're a freshman, you didn't really want to be around the upperclassmen in fear of we're going to get hazed or bullied, right?
Yeah.
And and nowadays, especially on the football end, like there's not that fear. A lot of those older players will help those freshmen out. And
Good.
and and so I'm like, wow, like that shows a maturity level as far as that goes. Now, I will say this across the state, we're talking about since we're talking about football so much here today, across the state, we got to do something on the atmosphere and environment of football and sports in high school in general. The participation rate is nowhere close to what it was 15, 20 years ago. Nowhere close. There's so many, like, you have these large schools, and the number of kids that are participating in sports is that of, I grew up in the 90s, early 2000s, is that of, you know, a 2 or 3A back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I wasn't what me and you would consider a 4A back then, because remember back when we went to schools up to 5A, because then you had 6-man football that was by itself. Well, now 6-man is 1A. So, anyways, well, I was a 4A, and I remember, and let's say in the football capacity, we had an A, B, and C team on freshmen. Right now, most schools only have a freshman team. Our
Mm-hmm.
JV, like I said, we're a 4A, but we weren't a big 4A. We should have been 3A, right? You okay? So we really should have been 3A, but we were considered 4A. Our JV was 70 people, and our varsity was pushing between 45 and 50. Now, in this same community right now, you have only one freshman team. You have a JV team that maybe is pushing 40 or 50 kids, pretty much what I was pushing as a senior on varsity, or not when I was on varsity, I was on varsity for my sophomore year, but on varsity, that varsity team only has about 30, 35 kids. So less than what I had, right? Back
Oh,
then. So,
wow.
so
Okay.
I think one year there was a school that had 68 kids from freshman to varsity. They had less kids in their entire program than what my school had my senior year for a JV level. And so, and you're seeing that across the state here in Texas, which is because, and if you look into the stands, unless a team is traditionally winning all the time, if you look into the
Yeah.
stands, you don't even see the participation and people showing up to watch the games anymore. And that's what's kind of like, there needs to be some sort of a shift to kind of get it right back on that level. But I think a lot of that starts elementary. And most schools in Texas nowadays, there's not PE every day. PE's 2 or 3 days a week. Over here, they've just moved PE in my son's school from 3 days a week to 2 days a week, right?
I think
And
my son is 2 days out of the week too. And I was
yeah,
like, I remember having it almost every
it
day.
was every day. It was every single day. Plus, you had 2 recesses when you're in elementary. Now they have like, if they do have 2 recesses, it's like 2 15-minute recesses, right? So and it
Sweet.
used to be 2 30-minute recesses, and you had PE every day, right? And
Yeah.
and you wonder why kids are having ADD, ADHD, especially young men. It's because you're not moving enough. And then the
Mm-hmm.
guidelines from the state legislature on how much a kid should move in a week is only like 155 minutes, I think. So that fits into the 2 PEs and the recesses. That's nowhere near close to what it. Think about that. 155. That's like 2 hours and 30 minutes. 2 hours and 35 minutes. You go out there and get that knocked out in a sitting on a weekend day, and when I was growing
Yeah.
up, and you were that was a fraction of what you were playing outside. You're outside 4, 5, 6, 7 hours throughout the day on a weekend,
Yeah.
and then they expect these kids it's funny, they're dropping all this activity for them, but they expect them to sit there in a desk to learn how to do a STAR test. And even on the STAR test, they're bringing down the quality of the test to make them pass. So were you around for the toss test or the tax test?
Yes, toss
Toss. Okay.
testing. Mm-hmm.
So we had the toss test. When they came in, because I was a teacher for a few years, when they came in for the tax test was the easier version of the toss test. The STAR test is an easier version of the tax test. And they're now about to try to, what they've been working on the past few years is let's cut this STAR test in half, right? So now, because you have 4 hours to do a 2 hour test. So if you now give them 2 hours, you're giving them 2 hours to do what? A 30-minute test. If you know what I'm saying, if you're trying to do the math out,
Yeah.
right? So, or an hour to, it's, or I'm sorry, an hour to do a 2 hour test. So it's, I'm sorry, 2 hours for 1 hour, but so
Gotcha.
anyways, with that being said, you see how it's like, well, then what's a standardized test for? A standardized test for is not for the kids, it's for the adults to show, oh, we're passing these kids. No, you're moving the goalposts closer and closer to midfield. You're not even moving it in
Oh,
the back of the end zone. You're moving it towards midfield to make yourself look good, so you don't lose money from the state, so you don't lose your jobs from the school districts. The school districts, look good. That's all that's for. If you cared about the kid, you go into learning, right? I have an older brother that's what 25 years older than me. He remembers stuff from the 70s when he was in high school that I've completely forgotten about. And I graduated 20 years after he did. It's because back then
yeah.
there, standardized tests hadn't been put into place yet, and they were learning, like they were actually
Yeah.
learning to retain, not learning to take a test. So there's a lot of culture that needs to be changed. I'm also not a fan, Nadine, of No Child Left Behind. I don't think if a kid wants to be in school, don't then take them out of the classroom because
Yeah.
because you're gonna. I was a kid on the fence. I was a kid that could have gone one way or the other. Now, if I was that same kid in today's environment of school, I'm not doing what I'm doing now. I'm not going
Yeah.
and playing sports. I'm going the other direction because those kids get all the attention. Those kids get to leave class. In fact, my son, when he was in kindergarten, he noticed behavior. The redirection kids were able to leave class. So he gets up one day. This is 2 weeks into school in kindergarten. He gets up one day and throws a chair across the room. He says, "I want to leave class. I want to be in redirection." Because for him, he's all like, those kids are being rewarded. They're leaving class. And so of course,
Wow.
they had to go and say, this is what redirection is, this is for behavior kids, blah, blah, blah. But even when I was a teacher, I was like, I don't agree with them taking these kids out. I don't agree with them being rewarded to act like they're supposed to act. And then these
Yeah.
other kids that are doing things right, they get nothing done. And in fact, if they happen to have a hiccup, you're throwing the book at them. So a lot of
Wow.
culture needs to be changed, I think, in our school system when it comes to that. So
I don't want to voice my opinion. I've heard some stories that, you know, through the past 2, 3 years, I think that teachers need to learn again. I mean, I will just put it out there. I'm not going to say what city, but guess they were at recess and they were playing football. I don't know what happened, but the teacher just was like, okay, no more football for the rest of the year. And she punished everybody instead of that one kid. And I even called and spoke, why are you punishing all of them? Can it be a learning lesson for like 2 to 3 weeks? But no, they punished the whole year. So no football. And I don't agree with it, but that's not, and then just the way that how it goes both ways. So how the teacher treats the kids and how the kids treat the teachers.
mm-hmm.
There's some things like my son, he got in trouble, but he was already done his test. And she was just trying to find a reason to do a signature in a folder. It's
Yeah.
like, Mom, I really didn't do anything. I was just done. I was just sitting there, and she was just
Yeah.
upset that I was done. And I go, actually, I believe you. So, I mean, there's different things that kids have to learn and get through their schooling, their grades. And now there's apps like Huddle that I'm learning. It's a resume for kids, and you get the best plays video put on there. So when they can go into middle school, they show this is what I've done and I've accomplished and everything. So,
Yeah,
um,
there's a lot of resources that these kids have that we didn't, and
yeah,
I do like what you did say about, just like how teachers, need to do learn to do some things again, and then you brought the kids, how teachers treat the kids and how the students treat the teachers, and I completely agree with you. But it used to be where if a teacher had a complaint about one of the kids, the parents were on the teacher side until proven different. Like you're going to teach, you're going to learn respect. You respect the teacher. You're going to respect your adults when you're not here.
yeah,
It's like my mom always and dad always looked at it as if I'm not around you, these adults around, these adults that are around, they're an extension of us, and you better not, you act a fool, like they have the right to get onto you, right?
yeah,
And then, but now you have parents that say, don't, you can't talk to my kid that way, and if it has a lot of
exactly.
kids feel entitled, now if that being said on the teachers end too, you also have a lot of administrations that don't back teachers. You also have a lot of administrations that also maybe give teachers a little bit too much, autonomy, and
Oh, yeah.
then you have teachers that you are right. You have to also think about the generation a lot of these younger teachers are coming up in as well, right? So it's like you're like their own teaching their own almost, right? So like and so I was born in 82, so I'm on that cusp of Gen X and millennial, right? And so
Yeah.
I was like, I'm in that generation where I could use a rotary phone, but I know how to use a cell phone too, right? Like we remember dial up, right? So we're like,
Yes.
we're the last group of kids that played with riding our bikes to other friends' houses, right? We didn't need to have, right? Even though we had the Nintendos and the PlayStation ones and all that stuff, we weren't doing that as often as we're outside still playing. And so that's what I'm thinking. Like there needs to be a culture shift, saying you need to respect your elders again. Elders, you need to start
Yes.
teaching again, right? Like you need to have, this is your lane, this is your role as whoever you're doing it. And as a parent, that's also your lane and your role. But when during the school year, when that teacher is with the kid for 8 hours a day, please respect what the teacher says about the kid. And then with that being said, like you have your administration, like it used to be a whole team, right? It used to be, okay, this is what everybody's expected to do. And it's not the team anymore. It's like, unless everything's perfect, if something goes
Yep.
awry, you start seeing them all turn on each other. It makes it very difficult to get anything accomplished from there. That's probably why you're having private schools thriving, you're having homeschools thriving, because people are like, I don't
Yep.
want to deal with this. So yeah.
I mean, I think it's sad. The latest big thing I've heard is kids are not allowed to go to the bathroom anymore. And some parents, I had one last year, she said, I'm not going back to public school. My daughter has this illness, has to go to the bathroom, but the teacher kept saying no, no, no to her. And
Yeah,
it's
it sounds
just sad.
like a teacher just, and that's not okay. You know, if you ever work in, if you've ever been in mental health, you start, the psychiatry part of stuff, and you have people that try to find a level of control with something in their life. And when you have somebody, let's just say what happened with that teacher and how they were treating the child, that teacher
Hmm.
might not have a lot of control in their life, and they feel that my position here, talking to some elementary and saying, no, I'm going to die on the hill that you can't go to the bathroom, that's the control they feel in their life, which means there's something deeper than that. Just like when you have a
Yeah.
kid with behavior, right? A lot of times, like they'll like lose it if they don't get what they want, but if you're able to give them the illusion of choice and say, hey, here's your
Yeah.
control, here's the illusion of choice, right? They don't know it's an illusion of choice, but then they're able to then get what they need to get done, and now you have to go on about your day. So it's typically, like I said, if there's a lack of control, something in your life, you're going to try to find something to latch on that you can control, and that's just a lot of times not proactive, and that's not productive. A lot of times it hurts somebody else.
Yeah. And I mean, I think back in, schools, I think the teachers, because as I do life coaching and talk to other people, it's about choice, what choices we make in life. But I don't see our kids actually going through that learning process that they have choices and what those outcomes could be. Knowledge is power. So, but teaching them real world stuff that is going to also come up to them and have a better understanding. I mean, I remember it was economics for me. Like we had to take care of an egg and not
I
break
remember
it.
that. We did that too. Yes,
My egg broke. My egg broke at the end. I was like, what? I'm not a bad mom. So,
I remember
but
that.
it was just those life lesson classes were good. Even woodworking. I mean, what am I going to do with woodworking? Nothing. But, we had fun,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
learning different things out
Getting out of your
there.
comfort
So
zone, right? So, like
I
for instance,
know.
you're a girl that's probably a bunch of guys that like cars, or maybe some athletes, and and you're in woodwork, and vice versa. When you have to do the egg, you have a so I remember I did. I was a football player, and I'm walk around this egg, and I'm like, man, I'll tell my teammates, if you make me drop this egg, we're gonna have a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like we're gonna have a big problem if you make me drop this egg, because that's the goal of some of your buddies in high school, like because they
Yeah.
know it's coming, right? Like, oh, you're in this class, or And so I was like one of the big dogs in our school, and I was like, man, I was like, we're gonna have a big problem if this egg cracks, like So so yeah, dude, that's so cool. I get to talk to people from my generation. And the fact that it was almost universal with that type of
Yeah.
teaching, and just with the relationships. But like that's what I'm saying. There needs to be a culture shift back to the old, and it's not about being traditional or conservative. I think being traditional and being progressive, that they could follow the same line, right? But you don't
Mm-hmm.
completely change things, right? Like, oh, like, well, this or that. Like a lot of times, stuff that's changed by people, or people that aren't even in that position anyways, right?
Yeah.
So they've never been there. So it's just I could go on. That's another thing I could go on totally about.
Yeah.
But with that
Can
being
you hear
said,
my dogs? I'm sorry. I
oh,
was
no
like, oh my
worries. No,
gosh, they're parking right next to the door.
no, but
So
no, I think though, I think progressivism and being traditional and conservative on that those, especially while you're bringing young kids up, those go hand in hand with each other.
yeah, they do. They really do. And it's all about, their strength in moving forward and learning from those learning lessons.
Yeah.
And, I know there's been some hard things you had to get over in life, and that's what made you stronger.
Mhm.
With those challenges you had to go through, what would you tell the listeners? How did you find hope in all those challenges?
One of the things. So I don't know. I know we talked before the show started that I'm also working to build a public speaking business as well. And so when I
Yes.
when I talk to my audiences, one of the things I tell, whether it's kids, or when I get into a corporate, start working in the corporate realm of this, is when you come under struggles and you come under pressure, and especially people coming up, right? Like we've been talking about your son and his age, and maybe that group of kids coming up. But
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're getting older, you start to, you realize your coping skills, you realize how tough you are, maybe mentally. And I'm sorry. And so what I tell people is this: you could go one or two routes, right? That's going to determine the rest of your life. You're either going to become a testimony or an excuse, right? A
Mm-hmm.
testimony is saying, I took these struggles, I took a lot of these losses, and because of that, that helped strengthen me, and that helped build calluses on my soul and on my psyche, to learn to push through and be resilient. And that's where I'm at today. And I'm going to tell you this as a testimony of saying this helped me get to where I'm at, right? This helped me get to where I am by building resilience. Or this helped me get to where I'm at because everything that happened to me, that's an excuse for me to act a fool, and for me to not do the right thing, and for me to say, I'm putting the blame on everybody else. That's why I didn't succeed. Hence, that's why where I'm at. So
Yeah.
both of them are where I'm at. But one is taking that, bringing it in, saying, I'm going to take this and I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to take this and I'm going to go. The other one's taking it and saying, that's not me. It's y'all. I'm going to act up because I'm going to act a fool because that's on them. I didn't have this. I didn't have this luxury. I didn't do this, right? That's not on
Yeah.
me. I'm an excuse now. So either you're going to be a testimony to help countless others, or you're going to be that statistic that somebody's going to read on a book.
And that's, yeah, that's no good. But public speaking, that's amazing. Can people already start finding you at all?
Yeah, so my website is warroomspeakersclub.com. So
Okay.
it's all together, warroomspeakersclub.com, because that kind of plays on to my performance business as well. It's War Room Strength Club. So it's warroomspeakersclub.com. You could also find me on Instagram. In between each word is a what is it you call it? That's a little line that everybody the word. What's that called?
Slash, not a
What's up?
hyphen. Is it a
Uh,
hyphen or slash? Maybe we need to go back to school. I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
know.
Close, not a
It's
slash it.
underscore. So
Underscore. Okay, there we go.
underscore. So on Instagram, it's War Room Speakers Club, but in between every in between every word is an underscore. And then of course I have the same thing, Ross Alexander. Actually, it's Ross Alexander's War Room Speakers Club on Facebook. And then of course I have a YouTube as well. Just look up Ross Alexander War Room, and it'll pop up under YouTube. But best way, just go to my website, warroomspeakersclub.com.
And I'm going to have all this posted on the social media for your videos and stuff. It will
Okay.
be on the Keep Hope Alive podcast. And then when it sends it out into the world, it's going to have that too. So, which is really, really nice. But yeah, I know we're kind of like running close to time, but just kind of going over, we did talk about the powerlifting
Mm-hmm.
and, helping the cheerleaders. That's amazing to me. I was like, yeah, you're going to have that strength to show them and how to do it. And just teaching the other people of how to lift correctly, that is important. Um, it would be a whole other discussion, but do you ever talk about nutrition and what to
Yeah.
eat and all that stuff?
Oh, yeah, yeah, of course. So I took a lot of nutrition classes in college, and that's a big play on when I train my kids on what they should eat, and as far as performance base goes, and I talk to individuals in general as far as eating correctly. I had a kid I've never trained physically, but he's a wrestler in Austin, and I sent him. They'll him and his parents will pay for me to write out nutrition goals for him so we can make weight because
Oh, nice.
wrestling in such a way.
That's
So
really good.
yeah,
Okay. So, like, I heard somebody, well, I mean, it was a bunch of the boys. I never told the coach this. So, surprise, coach. Yeah, I'm going to send him this show too. Um, I hear it from my own son. He is like, I want to grow. I want to have my growth spurt now. Like, I'm not tall. I feel like I'm still stuck here. And then, or I want to gain weight. And I thought it was weird because I took him to my doctors with me to get checked, and they go, "Hey, come stand on the scale." And I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Now I can see how much he weighs." It's been a little while, but he's at the right size, but he feels like he's too skinny. And I go, "Honey, it's not too skinny." I go, "You run fast. That's important in football. Like you got this." So, but I heard somebody say eat peanut butter on a spoon, like right before bedtime. That will help you. So, I mean, I'll reiterate that with Liam. Just eat a teaspoon of peanut butter.
I mean, when it comes to it, he's 11. Well, he's 11 years old. You said, right?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
that's going. He's still a child. All that's going to come,
yep,
right? Like he doesn't need to worry about gaining weight and all that stuff. And even then, if you are going to do peanut butter, do real peanut butter. Don't do the Jif, right? Do the stuff that has the oil based in there and so forth. But to be honest, like it's going to come, right? He's a kid still,
yeah,
and he might be
yeah.
a receiver now and might be a linebacker or defensive end by the time he's out of high school, right?
I
Like
know, right?
so just say, hey, son, you're still growing, you're still a
Yeah,
child, you haven't hit adolescence yet. And then, as long as he keeps that type of mindset, that motivation, then he carries on that work
yeah.
ethic. It sounds like he's really smart. which means like when he's out in the field and then he's around some good coaches, then they're going to scheme against other teams that traditionally might be just one of like seem more athletic than them. And that's why you see a lot of these teams that you don't think maybe should be there in the playoffs, but it's because they're smart. They scheme really well,
Imagine that.
right?
Okay.
But no, just tell him it'll come. He's still a kid,
Yeah.
11 years old. Nobody's looking at an 11-year-old thinking they're an adolescent. Nobody's looking at a 12-year-old thinking they're an adolescent.
Yeah.
Once he starts becoming a teenager, like I said, and then by the time he gets to high school, his body's will change even more. Just tell him to keep working. Don't worry about putting any extra food in your body. Don't worry about all of that's going to come. The weightlifting, not right now, right? All of that will come. Tell him, say, son, just keep right now. Calisthenics is important. Core strength is
Hmm.
important. Trunk strength is important. And to keep on working his mind. That's all that matters right now.
You know what I noticed for Christmas, my brother got a trampoline, and my daughter's boyfriend helped my brother put it all together. But
Mm-hmm.
seeing him on the trampoline, I always wanted to have for him, but never got. He was practicing his football jumps and catching the ball. And I was like, that is so cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is a goal now for me. I'm still, it doesn't matter what age. That was amazing, to see the body. But he's also, how can I move my feet? And I'm a wedding photographer and I do karaoke, so I have to learn all those trendy dances and I'll cut around with him. I go, we're gonna do the Cupid shuffle and the Copperhead Road mixed together and then throw the ball. And
There
just
you go.
remember, jump in the air and flip over.
There you go.
He
That's
was like,
awesome.
I want my own team. It
You're
would
doing
be all
footwork drills
dancing
with him.
moves.
You're doing footwork drills through popular dance styles. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, called the football shuffle.
There you go.
But definitely, thank you so much for coming on to Keep Hope Alive and hearing your story. And, you know, I I definitely want to hear more about you as you achieve those goals as a
Yeah.
public speaker because you're excellent. You're wonderful.
Well, I
And
appreciate it.
getting the word out there and building that courage for kids to be moved forward and enjoy their passion and their love and exercise and nutrition. Make sure they get good sleep too.
There you go. Oh, that's
Water,
definitely
water,
important.
sleep.
Definitely
So,
important.
but staying fit is very important. So,
Yes.
but I also really quickly wanted to thank our other sponsors for the show. We had talked about lifeonrecord.com, who is our interactive guest book. We also have bridalshowsinc.com, and you being from this area, you should know this. For the Dallas Fort Worth area, Naomi Butler, she's in charge of Bridal Shows Inc., but she hosts about 5 shows out of the year. Dallas, Fort Worth, Denton, Irving, Las Colinas, you name it. You can go meet your vendors, learn what they do, set up a meeting, get their pricing and services and stuff like that. Very fun to go to. Our next one is milesandSmilesEvents.com, Miss Deborah Rose. She has a background in investigating, but she is a handwriting analyst and a lipstick reader, and she's 100% accurate. This woman is on fire. I've seen her at the events she's done, and I mean, if it was up to me, I would want to sit with her all day. I'm sorry, forget the event, but she's accurate. She's
Wow.
that good. So, and then our next one is Bryce Hartney. He's a magician and mind mentalist. He's traveling all over the United States doing these big shows right now. You can visit his website at www.brycemagic.com. Our next one is richmondpunch.net. He graduated from the Juilliard. He's one of our finest violinists out there. He's been doing it for many, many years. He's performed in front of 1 million people, had, I think, 2 show spots on Lifetime shows, but he's definitely outstanding. Now, This is my fun one. My last one is TK Hair Salon. They are based in Plano, Texas. So if you are out this way, come get your hair done. They do color, cuts, eyebrows, the whole facial, do guys' hair and everything, kids' hair, and they are excellent. So check them out at TK Hair Salon. So it might be .com or you'll find them on Facebook somewhere. So, but other than that, wherever you guys find your podcast, you're gonna find Keep Hope Alive. Ooh, and we're looking for more speakers all the time. I want to wish everybody, and you too, a happy New Year's. It's like right what? We're a day away. So we're going to bring in the new year with some good vibes, good energy, lots of joy, love, faith, and hope. Imagine that.
There you go. There you go.
But I want to thank you, Ross, for being on our
Thanks for
show.
having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, you guys have a great day. Love and light.